Okay, so we're just 2 weeks away from Europe's Strongest Man, and I thought it was time to do a review of the competition, the events, and who's competing, and my predictions for top three. Now, it's a really exciting competition. I think the lineup is unbelievable. We've got four former Europe's Strongest Man title winners in Alexei Novikov, Luke Stoltman, Pavlo Kordiaka, and Luke Richardson. We've got guys like Ivars who are former podium finishers as well. I think the lineup's going to be fantastic, and I think it's going to be a great insight into who's going to perform at World's Strongest Man. Let's go through the events. Okay, so first up we've got the press medley. Now I'm not sure these are in the exact order, but I'll just go through them as I've got them listed. I'm not sure the exact implements they're using, but I know they have got a dumbbell, a safe press, a log, and I believe an axle. So as far as I'm aware, it's not crazy heavy, because obviously we're quite close to World's Strongest Man and they don't want to injure anyone, but still heavy enough to challenge the guys. And I think they've got to do 2 reps on each object. So it's going to be really tough, 8 reps in total, even though it's not necessarily super heavy. I mean, it's still heavy, but not like crazy top end weights. They're still going to need to be very strong to get through it and get all those reps done. And the next event, which is actually one I really enjoy watching, the shield walk. The thing I love about the shields when they do it with Giants Live is they go head to head, which I think is fantastic. Seeing 2 guys up and down the course as far as they can. You then get a little bit of drama sometimes where someone starts off a bit slower, someone overtakes the other one. I think it's a fantastic event, and obviously it shows a lot about a strongman's character as well as their conditioning. If you do well on a shield walk, yes, obviously you need to be super fit to do well and have that strength endurance that you need, but also it shows a lot about someone's character and their grit and determination. So interesting event and really looking forward to it. Next up, we've got the anchor carry and drag. Now, this will be quite a fast event in my opinion. The surface that they use at Europe's Strongest Man generally is quite slick, so the drags do tend to be a little bit easier. I don't know if they're going to put the carpets down and stuff like that, like they sometimes do, but I know at Europe's, when I've done that anchor and chain drag, it does slide quite well. So not crazy heavy again. You know, I think Darren has done a great job of picking the events. One, they're quite similar to the events at World's Strongest Man, but also on top of that, no one wants to see anyone getting injured at this point that close to World's Strongest Man. And there's always a bit of an issue with dates. See, most people would probably say, why are they running a World's Strongest Man qualifier that close to World's Strongest Man? One, it's a last ditch attempt, so that's good in itself. But also, Europe's Strongest Man is booked far in advance, and World's Strongest Man, a lot of the time, TV schedules and things like that, they're not always sure on the event. So Europe's Strongest Man gets booked first, and then Worlds tends to come after. But it's unfortunate, but a lot of the time, the TV companies dictate when World's Strongest Man happens. We have also got that axle deadlift. Now, I don't know if it's going to be the big axle with the wheels or the globes. I'm not totally sure which one they're going to use, but either way, it's going to be 350 if it's the globes, or 360 if it's the axle wheels. Both very heavy, both very hard lifts. The axle wheels for me feel a little bit harder, even though, well, they're heavier, they're 10 kilos heavier, but also they feel noticeably harder. It's not just 10 kilos difference. Now, I'm not sure if that's to do with the length of the barbell or exactly why, but it does feel very, very hard. So that's going to be great to see. And last but not least, like most strongman competitions, finishing up on the castle stones, which in layman's terms is the Atlas stone. So I believe, as usual, I would probably say they will do the heavy set, although I know that they are trying to save the guys a little bit in terms of not making things stupid heavy. I think sometimes those lighter sets actually are almost worse. I think I've seen far more bicep tears on light stones where people are rushing than on heavy stones where they've actually got to think about and concentrate on the lift. So that's your events. I think it's a fantastic mix, and like I said, they are events that will work well with what they've got at World's Strongest Man, in terms of they won't have to break their training too much to just you know, be able to do these events at Europe's Strongest Man. It'll almost be like a hard, heavy training session for the guys. So, I mean, some of the guys will be training at heavier weights than what they're doing in the competition. You know, it all depends on how they approach it. I personally would have looked at it as a good training session, but yeah, I mean, the lineup's good, and obviously people haven't sort of sat out really, apart from, you'd probably argue and say Tom Stoltman is sitting out because he wants to focus on World's Strongest Man, but a lot of the best guys in Europe are there competing, which is fantastic. So right, let's go through the lineup. We have got last year's champion, Luke Stoltman. Just won Britain's Strongest Man, looked probably in the best shape I've ever seen him. I think he was fantastic at Britain's, thoroughly deserved his win, and yeah, he's definitely going to be in with a shout of winning Europe's Strongest Man again. So that'll be the third time, I believe, if he does it, which is a great achievement. Next up is Pavlo Kordiaka, again a former Europe's Strongest Man winner, fantastic athlete, and with these events could be super dangerous. You'd argue perhaps that his deadlift is not as strong as the other events, but he could still place well enough where he'll do well enough on the other events to be in with a shout of winning the competition. He's an amazing athlete, is Pavlo, and very good at sort of moving, carrying more athletic events, and also will be extremely fast on the press medley. So it's going to be interesting to see how he gets on. Next up, Alexei Novikov. Now, I've always been a massive fan of Alexei. I think he's an absolutely brilliant strongman. Perhaps has not had the best last couple of years. I don't know if it's just been a case of injuries and things like that, or maybe just the sort of wear and tear on his body got a little bit much. But I think when Alexei is in shape and everything's firing at 100%, he is dangerous in any competition. I still always go back to watching him compete in World Ultimate Strongman competition in Bahrain, just after he won World's Strongest Man. He was just unbelievable, and it reminded me of watching like Marius when we were competing together, just so dominant, and almost like Hooper has been recently as well. I think if Alexei can get back to that level, he's going to be extremely dangerous here and at World's Strongest Man. Another personal favourite of mine, a guy I love watching compete, fantastic strongman, Mateusz Kielikowski. Now, Mateusz, for me, is right up there with the best guys to never win World's Strongest Man. I think he's a fantastic athlete. Obviously, same as Pavlo, his deadlifts always just let him down a little bit. Now, he's not a weak deadlifter. I've seen him pull 420 in the past. It's not super weak. It's just obviously the guys he's been competing against are monster deadlifters in the past. I think he's not a poor deadlifter. He's not up to the level of all of his other events. But again, Mateusz, much like Alexei, if he's 100% fit and at his absolute best, he's extremely dangerous here. I can't wait to see it, actually. I really am hoping and praying that he's at his best and everything's at 100%, because if he is, he's definitely in with a shout of winning. Like I said, I think he's him, Poundstone, in my opinion. I know a lot of people sort of talk from past people, but I can only sort of really gauge on what I've seen. I think him and Poundstone would probably be the two best strongmen that have not won World's Strongest Man. So I really hope he's back at 100% fitness. So next up, coming off the back of a good performance at Britain's Strongest Man, was really unlucky not to podium, is Paddy Haynes. Now, had he got a rep on the log, which I know we could always say what if, he would have podiumed at Britain's Strongest Man. So great that he's getting another opportunity. I think I'm hoping he gets a reserve slot at World's Strongest Man, which I think he probably will based on his Britain's performance. But he was very, very good at Britain's Strongest Man. I think he's one of the real talents certainly in England, but in the UK as well, that's coming through at the moment. I think he's got a lot of potential. He's only sort of just scratching the surface of what he will be capable of. So it's great that he's getting another opportunity, a really big show, and hopefully he sort of builds from where he was at the Britons and puts in a good performance. But I'm sure he will. I mean, I think A press medley that's not super heavy might suit him a little bit better than a 160 log for reps. And also on top of that, all the events are pretty good for him. Great deadlifter, great at sort of carrying events. Shield walk, I would imagine he'll be really good as well. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how he gets on. He's a good stone lifter. He may lose a few points on the press medley, but if he can really focus on the lifts he knows he can get and he's confident on doing those quickly, he might score a couple more points than he would normally on a press event. So I'm not saying he's going to be in with a shout of winning the show, but it'd be great to see him put in another good performance and progress on from where he was at Britain's. So another former champion in 2020, I believe, which was the COVID year that was behind closed doors, we've got Luke Richardson. Now, I always sing Luke's praises a lot. I think he's, again, more so than Paddy at the moment. He's one of the best talents we've got in Britain at the minute. I think that he has all the potential in the world. He could go on and win World's Strongest Man in the future. I think, again, had a rough run with injuries over the last couple of years, but seems to be coming out the other side of that. Didn't deliver at Britain's Strongest Man, which was a shame. Luckily, he's already qualified for World's Strongest Man based on his performances last year. But I think that these events are very good for Luke. I think he's a great strong man. He's not really got any weak events. I think that the Britain's thing, I'm not sure exactly what happened. I know he took a sort of bit of a funny turn after the loading race. Wasn't feeling too well, so I don't know if he'd had a bit of a bug leading up to it or what, or maybe just pushed himself too hard and sort of overexerted himself. But Luke will be in with a shout of winning Europe's Strongest Man for sure. Another good friend of mine, great strong man, perhaps doesn't get the credit he deserves a lot of the time. We've got Ivar Smorkstelis. He is a fantastic all-round strong man. He's not, I wouldn't say he's the best at anything. He's very good at a lot of events, and he always does really well. Perhaps doesn't get the sort of credit that he deserves for the amount of top 3 finishes he gets. It's absolutely insane how many top 3 finishes in international competitions he's had. He's been second at Europe's Strongest Man in the past, finalist at World's Strongest Man. He's a really, really top quality strongman. Just probably doesn't, because he's not exceptional at one event, he perhaps doesn't get those moments so much on TV where it's like, you know, you don't always have to be placing well. If you've got one moment on TV that everyone goes, wow, that was amazing, people tend to give you a lot more credit than if you are just very good at all the events and consistent and place a lot better. It's those wow moments that tend to stick in people's minds, and perhaps he doesn't often have those. I mean, his power stairs are very good and his throwing events are very good, so maybe a little bit of that, but you know, he tends to sort of just go under the radar a lot of the time. But he could do really well. Again, another potential podium finisher, and you know, if he had a good day and everything went his way, it's not off the table that he could win this. So hopefully he's 100% fit and healthy and raring to go. Another one coming up, which is the funniest guy in strongman, no doubt about it, Mr. Par O'Dwyer. Now, Par has had sort of an up and down couple of years. I think he's, you know, by his own admission would say that, you know, he's performed well in some shows and perhaps underperformed in others. But again, I think that the comedy side of Par sometimes takes away from the ability that he has got. He's done really well at Britain's Strongest Man a couple of times. And if you actually sort of watch what Par does, he doesn't always deliver at shows, which, you know, happens sometimes. You can't be at peak shape all year round. But he is pretty good at most events. He's a good deadlifter. He's a good overhead presser. His moving events are pretty good. You know, he's a decent strongman, is Par. And I think that the comedy side of him and the sort of entertainment side sometimes takes over from, you know, how good of a strong man he actually is. Now, if he's gone away and really sort of been disciplined and focused on what he's doing, he could put in a big performance. And it would be great if he does and put himself in with a shout of getting one of those last few spots at World's Strongest Man, because it's always great to have the entertainment value around. Par's really, as he is on camera and on the mic, he's the same backstage. He's always laughing, joking, making everyone feel good. So it's nice having him around at World's Strongest Man. So I hope he does well. Now, one of the best deadlifters on the planet, no doubt about it. Next, Rauno Heinla. Now, Rauno, again, perhaps doesn't get the sort of credit that he deserves. In my opinion, everyone sort of talked about in Vegas when we had the World Deadlift Championships last year, everyone talked about how Mitch pulled 505 up to, you know, his mid-shin. But Rauno's 470, in my opinion, was the best out of all of them. It was a nice, smooth, fast lift. Now, he has had a lot of hamstring issues over the past, but he's a very good strongman, is Rauno. The only thing, he's got a little bit of a weak grip, but there's no farmer's walk here. And like I said, he's a great deadlifter. His overhead press isn't bad. You know, his stones are good. So, you know, he's got a good shout at doing well here. And yeah, like I said, I think he's another one, a bit like Ivar's, where he perhaps doesn't get the credit he deserves. Great up-and-coming young strongman, Andre Foitu. I was so impressed with him at World's Strongest Man last year. I think he is a real superstar talent. I first saw him compete at OSG Europe's in London year before last, and I was super impressed with him there. I was like, this lad has got some potential. By lad, I mean he's early 20s. He's very good, very talented, and he's got better and better. Every show I've seen him, he's looked improved from the time before. So be great to see how well he does at Worlds this year. He did really well last year, and I think he's got the potential to sort of go on and do well at all the shows he does. Like I said, he's still just a baby in the sport. He's got so many years ahead of him, and I think that Europe's Strongest Man would be obviously a great title for him to win in the future. I'm not sure he can win it right now, but I think if he performs and delivers and he's improved from where he was last year, there's no reason why he couldn't be in with a shout of top 3 as well. He's a fantastic athlete. So next up, we've got the Italian Nicholas Cambi. Now, I was calling for Nick Cambi for ages to step up from 105s because he's a real good strongman. Really impressive. And, you know, let's be honest, with the 105s, the top guys, they can compete in opens. They are strong enough. And obviously with a show like this, he's obviously not 105 anymore. He's a lot bigger than that now, but he's a good strongman, good all-round athlete. Got injured at World's Strongest Man last year, which was a real shame to see. But, you know, he's got all that experience from competing at under 105s. He knows how to do all the events. He's very efficient in what he does. Very strong as well. And obviously he's now bringing that into the open show. So although he hasn't done that many heavyweight shows, he's got so much experience behind him. And he performed really well at Europe's last year. I think that was what really sort of cemented him that spot at World's Strongest Man, because he wasn't in the top 3, but he was good enough where it was like, you can totally justify taking him. He was fantastic. And yeah, I remember commentating on him last year, and I was sort of saying, I think, you know, in my opinion at that point, watching it, I thought he deserves a shot at World's Strongest Man. And I know there was a couple of spots still up for grabs. And I'm glad that the people that selected the athletes agreed with me, because he got a shot. And yeah, it'll be great to see him come back to Europe's Strongest Man and do well. And hopefully, obviously, he can put in a great performance. So again, coming off the back of a Great Britain's performance, we have got Andrew Flynn. Now, I've seen Andrew compete for many years. He's just got progressively better, a little bit better each year, better and better and better. He's got loads of experience now. And I always sort of look at people like Andrew Flynn, and he's not got that massive deadlift power, that massive pressing power, but he's technically very good at everything. And he's sort of one of those guys that just always is there or thereabouts. He's like a proper strongman, in my opinion. And I know that sounds silly, but he's good at all the strongman events. He's good enough at the more gym type lifts like deadlifts and presses and things like that. He's good enough to do well, but he's very good at strongman events. So stuff that's very like out of the sort of box of gym work. He's great at farmers, great at truck pulls, great at moving events, but he's a real sort of good person to watch if you want to know how to do things and technically how to do things. He does everything so efficiently, and so well. And he's a real good athlete as well, which I think obviously helps. He's very fast, he's very fit, which, you know, as a strong man, people focus so much on gym lifts and forget that you need to be conditioned and fast and athletic as well. So he's a sort of real good example of maybe not the absolute strongest when it comes to brute strength, but has all those other attributes in abundance. So there's your lineup. I mean, for me, I think it's a fantastic lineup. Great events. It's going to be really exciting. And I'm absolutely buzzing to see it. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb. Now, when I'm picking my top three, I'm sort of looking at it thinking from two sides. Are Matthias and Alexei in 100% shape? Or are they still not quite back to their best? Now, if I think that they're both at their absolute best on those events, I see the top three potentially being, he's won the last two Europe's Strongest Mans, I believe. Just won Britain's Strongest Man, looks fitter than ever. So we'll put him in the top three. And then I would say that if they're back at their best, Alexei and Matthias will be in that top three as well. Now, if they're still not quite back to their best, I still would say that Luke Stoltman obviously would be in the top three. But then my other picks would be potentially Luke Richardson, and if he's fully fit on those events, I think Pavlo Kordiaka as well. But I think, yeah, Pavlo I see doing well on the pressing event because he's very fast, he's very explosive, he'll be very efficient on the press medley, and he'll be good enough on the deadlift to score a few points. So, yeah, I mean, that for me is the two sides it's going to go. A lot of it's going to depend on where Alexei and Matthias are at. If they're 100% fit and fully firing on all cylinders and back to their best, you can't really not pick them in the top three, in my opinion. But if they're not quite back to their best, or the other guys sort of really perform well, I think, yeah, Luke Richardson, Luke Stoltman and Pavlo Kordiaka. But, you know, even if they are back to their best, I'm not saying that Pavlo and Luke Richardson can't beat them. They can. I think any of those guys could win it. I think it's an incredible lineup. I think it's probably the most Europe's Strongest Man winners in a lineup we've ever had. And yeah, I mean, I can't wait for it. I can't wait to be a part of it. Can't wait to watch the show. I think the events are going to be very entertaining. I think that if you're going to watch Europe's Strongest Man, you're going to have a real treat. And if you're not, make sure you tune into the live stream, because me, Loz and Nicola will be commentating as usual and giving our insights on it. And obviously you get to watch all the action, which is the most important thing. So yeah, like I said, I believe there is still a few tickets available. If you want to head down and watch Europe's Strongest Man at First Direct Arena in Leeds, then head over to Giants Live's website to pick up some tickets. If you can't, then officialstrongman.com for the live stream. And yeah, I hope you enjoy the show, and thanks for watching.